Chapter 1. The Village. Whisperer Sai's motorcycle coughed and rattled as she eased it to a stop on the outskirts of Ban Nong Kok, a remote village tucked into the northeastern folds of Thailand. Dust billowed around her, settling into the cracked red earth, gritty against her boots. The late afternoon sun sagged low, casting an orange glow over the endless rice paddies and the dense jungle beyond, its edges swallowed by haze. The air thrummed with cicadas, sharp and relentless, laced with a faint, sour whiff of something rotting, overripe fruit or worse. She swung her leg off the bike, her thighs stiff from the long ride, and wiped sweat from her brow with a dusty sleeve. Her backpack hung heavy on her shoulders, stuffed with a notebook, camera, digital recorder, and a crumpled pack of cigarettes she hadn't touched since morning. She stretched, her spine popping, and squinted at the village ahead. Ban Nong Kok was a bleak sight, a single dirt road sliced through a line of shacks, their wooden frames warped, tin roofs rusted to a dull reddish brown. Porches tilted under the weight of time, occupied by villagers who watched her with silent, heavy stares. An old man sat cross-legged, chewing betel nut, his lips stained a wet red that gleamed in the fading light. A woman in a faded sarong shooed a scrawny chicken from her doorstep, her eyes never leaving Sai. A child peeked from a doorway, then vanished. No one spoke, no one waved. The stillness pressed against her chest, making her breath feel tight. Great, Sai muttered, kicking a pebble down the road. It skittered away, lost in the dust. Middle of nowhere, and they already hate me. At 25, she was a journalist from Bangkok, sharp-tongued, restless, with short black hair plastered to her neck under her denim jacket. She'd grown up on the city's edges, where noise was a constant companion. This quiet unnerved her. She was here for a story. Livestock dying mysteriously, drained of blood, no tracks in the mud. Her editor had scoffed. Wild dogs, he'd said, or poachers, but Sai's gut buzzed with something darker. Hours from Bangkok, dust caked her clothes, her phone flickering with one bar of signal. She checked it, snorted at the futility, and tucked it into her pocket. She approached the nearest house, where an old woman sat on a wooden stool, peeling cassava with a rusty knife. Mei Yai, 70, was wiry and tough, her sarong threadbare, her hands gnarled from decades of labor. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed her face, but her eyes glinted beneath it, dark, unreadable. She didn't look up as Sai stopped a few paces away. "Sawazdee-ka," Sai said, forcing a thin smile. "I'm Sai, from Bangkok. I'm here about the animals, the ones dying. Can I ask you a few questions?" Mei Yai's knife paused, hovering over the cassava. She tilted her head, peering at Sai from under the hat's brim, her gaze sharp as the blade. "City girl, huh?" she rasped, her voice rough with tobacco smoke, each word dragging like gravel. "You shouldn't poke around here. Bad things happen to nosy people." Sai smirked, unfazed. She'd heard worse from street hawkers. Dropping her backpack, she pulled out her recorder and clicked it on, the red light blinking alive. "I've heard worse," she said, leaning against a porch post that creaked under her weight. "Just give me something. What's killing the livestock? Dogs? Poachers?" Mei Yai didn't answer right away. She resumed peeling, the knife scraping slowly. Scrape, scrape, a rhythm that set Sai's teeth on edge. A breeze rustled the banana trees behind her, leaves whispering, and the cicadas hushed for a moment. The sky deepened to a bruised purple, dusk creeping in. Not dogs, Mei Yai said at last, her voice low. Not men, something higher. She lifted the knife, pointing it skyward, the blade catching a glint of fading light, then let it drop. Comes when the moon's thin, takes what it wants, leaves nothing. Sai scribbled, her skepticism flaring. Higher, like birds, she asked, tone dry. Mei Yai laughed, a dry bark that turned into a cough. She spat tobacco juice into the dirt, dark and wet. No feathers, no claws, just hunger. You'll see, if you stay. Sai frowned, patience thinning. When did it start? Mei Yai stood, stool tipping over with a thud. She stepped close, breath sour and warm. Before you were born, girl, she hissed. And it'll go on after you're gone. Leave it be. Go home. She turned and shuffled inside, slamming the door. Sai sighed, clicking off the recorder. Superstitious old bat, she muttered, slinging her bag over her shoulder and heading to her shack. Dusk fell, stars piercing the sky. A dog howled, sharp and mournful. She glanced back. A red glow flickered in Mei Yai's window, then vanished. Trick of the light, she thought, walking on. The shack was small, tin roof, cracked window, a cot. She dropped her bag, set her camera on a table, and flopped onto the cot, recorder in hand. Drained animals, creepy lady, bad vibe, she said softly. Better be worth it. Outside, crickets hummed. Beneath them, a faint drip, drip, drip seeped from the dark, unnoticed as she drifted off. Chapter 2. The first sighting. The shack was a flimsy cocoon of wood and tin, its walls thin enough to let the night's chorus seep through. Crickets chirping in restless waves, punctuated by the occasional croak of a frog hidden in the rice paddies. Sai lay sprawled on the cot, her denim jacket crumpled beneath her head as a makeshift pillow. Her backpack slumped against the wall like a tired companion. The air inside was stale, thick with the day's heat that refused to dissipate, and a faint musty smell clung to the warped planks. She'd drifted into a shallow sleep, the kind where dreams blur into half-formed thoughts, city streets melting into the hum of cicadas, her editor's gruff voice fading into the rustle of banana leaves outside. The recorder rested on her chest, rising and falling with her slow breaths, its red light long since extinguished. It was past midnight when something jolted her awake. Her eyes snapped open, heart thudding against her ribs, though she couldn't place why. The crickets still sang, but the rhythm felt off, fractured, as if something had interrupted their song. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, its cracks barely visible in the faint starlight seeping through the cracked window. Then she heard it, a sound, soft and wet, like water dripping from a leaky faucet, drip, 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 coming from outside. It was close, too close, just beyond the shack's thin walls. She frowned, sitting up slowly, the cot creaking beneath her. Her hand brushed the recorder, nearly knocking it to the floor, and she gripped it instinctively, her thumb hovering over the power button. Probably just a pipe, she muttered, her voice hoarse in the quiet. She didn't believe it, not really. The shack was too run down for plumbing, and the sound had a strange cadence, almost deliberate, like something tapping out a message. She swung her legs off the cot, boots thudding against the floor, and stood, brushing her damp hair from her face. The air felt heavier now, charged with a tension she couldn't name. She crept toward the window, her steps cautious, the floorboards groaning under her weight. The dripping grew louder as she neared, a rhythmic pulse that made her skin prickle despite the heat. Peering through the cracked glass, she squinted into the darkness. The rice paddies stretched out beyond the shack, a sea of shadowed stalks swaying faintly under a sliver of moon, thin as May Eye had warned. The jungle loomed in the distance, a black silhouette against the starry sky. At first, there was nothing, just the endless night, vast and empty. Then she saw it, a faint red glow hovering above the fields. It was small, no bigger than a lantern, but it moved, erratic, darting side to side like a firefly caught in a storm. Sai's breath caught, her fingers tightening around the recorder. "What the hell?" she whispered, leaning closer, her nose nearly brushing the glass. The glow pulsed, dimming then flaring brighter, and for a moment, she thought she saw a shape within it, something vague, elongated, trailing behind like a comet's tail. It bobbed higher, then lower, drifting closer to the shack before veering sharply away. Her rational mind scrambled for an explanation. A drone, maybe. Some farmer's kid playing a prank, or a trick of tired eyes after a long day. But the dripping sound synced with its movements, a wet accompaniment that made her stomach twist. She pressed her hand against the window frame, the wood rough under her palm, and strained to see more. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the glow winked out, swallowed by the dark. Sai exhaled, a shaky breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Okay," she said to herself, stepping back. "Okay, that was weird." Her voice sounded thin, unconvincing, even to her own ears. She glanced at the recorder, its blank screen reflecting nothing but her own uncertainty. She clicked it on, the red light blinking alive, and held it up, though she wasn't sure why. "March 18th, 2025, past midnight," she said, her tone clipped. "Saw a light in the fields, red, moving, probably nothing, tired as hell." She clicked it off, but the words felt like a lie. She sank back onto the cot, the springs groaning in protest, and set the recorder beside her. Her heart still raced, a dull thud against her ribs, and she rubbed her eyes with the heels of her hands. "Exhaustion," she muttered. "That's all it is. Long ride, creepy village, old lady's nonsense getting in my head." She forced a laugh, short and hollow, and lay back down, pulling her jacket over her shoulders like a blanket. The dripping had stopped, or maybe it hadn't, and she just tuned it out. Either way, she closed her eyes, willing sleep to take her again. But it didn't come easily. She drifted in and out, the boundary between wakefulness and dreams blurring. The glow lingered in her mind, a stubborn ember that refused to fade. She saw it again in flashes, hovering, pulsing, trailing something she couldn't quite grasp. At some point, deep in the night, the recorder clicked on by itself, or so she'd later convince herself. She didn't hear it, lost in her fitful sleep, but it captured something, a low, guttural hum, faint and unearthly, threading through the cricket's song. It wasn't a sound she'd noticed in the moment, wasn't anything she could explain. It lingered on the tape, a quiet whisper of what had been out there, watching from the dark. When dawn broke hours later, gray light creeping through the window, Sai stirred awake. The recorder lay where she'd left it, its battery drained to a flicker. She wouldn't listen to it until later, wouldn't hear that hum until it was too late to turn back. For now, she sat up, groggy and unsettled, the memory of the glow clinging to her like damp cloth. Outside, the rice paddies shimmered with morning dew, innocent under the rising sun. But the night had left its mark, a shadow she couldn't shake, and the village felt different now, less a story to chase, more a trap she'd stepped into. Chapter 3. The Old Tales. The morning sun climbed sluggishly over Ban Nong Kok, its pale light filtering through a veil of mist that clung to the rice paddies like a shroud. Sai stood outside her shack, a cigarette dangling unlit between her fingers, her eyes fixed on the fields where she'd seen the red glow the night before. The memory gnawed at her, a stubborn itch she couldn't scratch away with logic. Exhaustion, she told herself, or maybe some farmer's lantern trick. But the unease lingered, heavy as the damp air, and the faint drip, drip, drip she'd heard, or thought she'd heard, echoed in her mind like a taunt. She shoved the cigarette back into its pack, untouched, and slung her backpack over her shoulder. She needed answers, and Mei Yai, with her cryptic warnings, was the only lead she had. The village stirred slowly as she made her way down the dirt road. Chickens scratched at the earth, their clucks sharp in the stillness, while an old woman swept her porch with a brittle broom, her gaze flicking to Sai and away again. The air smelled of wet soil and smoke, the faint tang of last night's cooking fires lingering. Mei Yai's house sat at the road's bend, its wooden frame hunched like an old beast, the porch sagging under a clutter of drying herbs and rusted tools. Sai climbed the steps, the wood creaking beneath her boots, and rapped on the doorframe. "Mei Yai," she called, her voice firm but edged with impatience. "It's Sai. We need to talk." Silence answered her, thick and deliberate. She knocked again, harder, the sound rattling the flimsy walls. A shuffle came from within, slow and grudging, and the door creaked open just enough for Mei Yai's shadowed face to peer out. Her eyes were sunken, her mouth a tight line, and the wide-brimmed hat from yesterday was gone, revealing thinning gray hair pulled into a messy knot. "What do you want, city girl?" she rasped, her voice rough as ever. "Told you to leave it be." Sai crossed her arms, meeting the old woman's stare. "I saw something last night, a light in the fields, moving. You know what it is, don't you? No more riddles. I need the truth." She pulled out her recorder, clicking it on, the red light blinking like a challenge. Mei Yai's gaze flicked to the device, then back to Sai, her lips curling into a faint scowl. She hesitated, then stepped back, pulling the door wider. "Come in then," she muttered, turning away. "But you won't like what you hear." The interior was dim, the air thick with the scent of incense and something sour. Old tobacco, maybe, or decay. A single window let in a sliver of light, dust motes dancing in its beam, illuminating a clutter of Buddhist relics. A small golden Buddha on a shelf, faded prayer flags strung across the wall, and a cluster of talismans, twisted roots and bones, hanging from a nail. Mei Yai sank onto a woven mat, gesturing for Sai to sit across from her. Sai dropped her backpack and settled onto the floor, the mat rough against her palms, her recorder resting between them like a silent witness. "Start talking," Sai said, her tone clipped. "What's out there? What's killing the animals?" Mei Yai stared at her for a long moment, her gnarled hands fidgeting with a string of prayer beads. The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of flies outside. Then she sighed, a dry, rattling sound, and leaned forward, her voice dropping low. "You saw it, didn't you? The glow. It's her, Phi Kresue, the hunger that never dies." Sai's brow furrowed, her pen hovering over her notebook. "Phi Kresue? What's that? Some ghost story?" "Not just a story," Mei Yai snapped, her eyes flashing, real as you or me, but cursed, a woman's head floating, with her guts trailing behind, red and wet, glowing in the dark. She hunts at night, feeds on blood, flesh, whatever she can take. Been here longer than I have, longer than this village. She paused, her fingers tightening around the beads. And she's angry. Sai scribbled the words, her skepticism warring with a chill creeping up her spine. She'd heard of Thai ghost tales, Phi Pop, Krisu, spirits born of folklore. But this felt different, too vivid, too tied to the glow she'd seen. A floating head, she said, her voice dry. Come on, you expect me to believe that? May's eyes scowl deepened. Believe what you want, girl. I've seen her, years ago, when I was young. Eyes like fire, mouth dripping red. Took my brother's calf one night, left it hollowed out by morning. She's no tale to scare children. She's punishment. Punishment for what? Sai pressed, leaning closer, the recorder humming faintly. May's gaze drifted to a corner of the room where a small wooden shrine sat, its doors locked with a rusted chain. A faint stench wafted from it, rotten cloth, or something worse. For what happened, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Long time back, 50 years, maybe more. A woman Nok lived here. They said she was a witch, blamed her for a child's death. Village turned on her, beat her, burned her house, left her to die slow. But before she went, she cursed them, swore she'd come back, take what was owed. And she did. Night after they buried her, the glow started. Been here ever since. Sai's pen stilled, her breath catching despite herself. The story was wild, absurd, a rural legend spun from guilt and superstition. But May's eyes held no doubt, only a weary fear that made the room feel smaller, the air tighter. So this, Phi Krasu, it's her. Nok? Sai asked, glancing at the shrine. And the animals. She's restless, May said, nodding. Always hungry, takes what she can. Cows, pigs, dogs, sometimes more if you're fool enough to cross her. Your questions, you're poking around. It's stirring her up. She knows you're here. Sai snorted, forcing a laugh to break the tension. Right, a ghost knows I'm here. Look, I'm not buying it, not yet. But that shrine, what's in it? Something of hers. May stiffened, her hand darting to the beads as if to ward off the question. Don't touch it, she snapped. It's hers, old things from back then. Keeps her bound mostly, but it's weak now. You stay, you'll see more than a glow girl. You'll see her face. The words hung heavy, the stench from the shrine sharpening in Sai's nose. She stood, brushing off her jeans, and grabbed her backpack. Thanks for the story, she said, her tone edged with sarcasm. I'll check it out without touching your spooky box. She clicked off the recorder and headed for the door, but May's voice stopped her cold. She whispered my name once, the old woman said, staring at the shrine. Years ago. Haven't slept right since. Sai paused, hand on the doorframe, a shiver prickling her skin. She didn't reply, just stepped out into the morning light, the village stretching quiet and watchful around her. The mist had lifted, but the air felt no lighter. She pulled out her notebook, flipping to her notes. Phi Krasu, floating head, cursed woman, Nok. It sounded insane. A tale for campfire scares. But the glow, the dripping, May's fear. They clawed at her doubt, leaving cracks she couldn't ignore. She glanced back at the house, the shrine's corner just visible through the window, and swore she saw the chain tremble faintly. She shook her lazy old bat and walked away, the weight of the tail trailing her like a shadow. Chapter 4: The Butcher's Discovery. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Sai's phone buzzed against the rickety table, jolting her from a restless doze. She groaned, rolling off the cot, her boots hitting the floor with a dull thud. The shack was a sauna, the tin roof trapping the night's heat, and her shirt clung to her back with sweat. She snatched the phone, squinting at the screen through bleary eyes, one bar of signal flickering like a dying pulse. The call was from an unknown number, local by the code. She answered, her voice rough. "Yeah, who's this?" "Somchai," came the reply, gruff and clipped, heavy with a rural accent. "Pig farmer, you the city girl asking about dead animals? Come quick, got something you need to see." The line crackled, then went dead. Sai frowned, pocketing the phone. She'd left her name with a few villagers yesterday, fishing for leads after Mei Yai's tale of Fikrazue, a cursed head, glowing and hungry. She still didn't buy it, not fully, but the glow she'd seen 2 nights ago gnawed at her, and Mei Yai's words clung like damp rot. She grabbed her backpack, recorder, notebook, camera, and stepped outside, the dawn air cool against her skin. The rice paddies shimmered with dew, the jungle a dark smear in the distance. The village was quiet, save for the faint cluck of chickens and the creak of a cart somewhere down the road. Somchai's place was a 10-minute walk, past sagging shacks and watchful eyes. She found it by the stench, mud and manure, sharp and sour, wafting from a pig pen tucked behind a low wooden house. The farmer stood waiting, a stocky man of 40 with a weathered face and hands scarred from years of labor. He wore a stained shirt and a scowl, his arms crossed tight. A machete hung from his belt, its blade dulled but menacing. "Over here," he grunted, jerking his head toward the pen. "Happened last night." Sai followed, her boots sinking into the muddy ground, the smell thickening as they neared. The pen was a crude square of bamboo stakes and wire, half a dozen pigs snuffling inside, except for one. It lay sprawled in the corner, motionless, its bulk unnaturally still. Somchai stopped at the edge, pointing. "Look." She stepped closer, her stomach tightening as the details came into focus. The pig was dead, its throat torn open, a jagged gash that glistened wetly in the morning light. Blood should have pooled beneath it, staining the mud red, but there was none, just a faint smear, already drying. The entrails were gone, the belly hollowed out, ribs stark against the pale flesh. Sai's breath hitched, her hand fumbling for her camera. She snapped photos, the shutter clicking in the silence, her mind racing. "What did this?" she asked, voice steady despite the churn in her gut. Somchai's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to the sky, then back to the pig. "Saw it," he said, low and rough. "Last night, after midnight, heard the pig squealing, loud, scared. Grabbed my machete, came out, thought it was a dog or a thief. Then I saw her, a woman's face, floating, glowing red. No body, just guts hanging down, dripping." He swallowed hard, his hand brushing the machete's handle. "Hovered over the pen, staring at me. Then it took the pig, fast, like a hawk, gone before I could swing." Sai's pen froze over her notebook, her skepticism cracking under the weight of his words. "A face," she said, half to herself. "Floating. You're sure?" It matched Mai Yai's story. Fai Krasu, the cursed head. But hearing it from Somchai, A man grounded in the dirt and sweat of his farm made it feel less like folklore, more like a nightmare bleeding into reality. Sure as I'm standing here, Somchai snapped, his voice rising. Look at the pig. Where's the blood? Where's the guts? Not a drop in the mud, not a track. I ain't crazy, city girl. I know what I saw. He turned away, spitting into the dirt, his shoulders hunched like he could shrug off the memory. Sai crouched beside the carcass, her camera lens zooming in on the wound. The gash was clean in places, ragged in others, like something had bitten and torn at once. The pig's eyes were wide, frozen in terror, pupils dilated even in death, a look that sent a shiver down her spine. She stood, brushing mud from her jeans, and glanced at Somchai. Anything else? Noise? Smells? Anything? He hesitated, then nodded. A hum, low, like bees, but wrong, and a stink, rotten, wet, made my head spin. She was gone quick, but I'll never forget that face. Eyes glowing, mouth open, teeth. He trailed off, shaking his head. Sai scribbled it down. Hum, rot, glowing eyes, her hand trembling slightly. She clicked on her recorder, holding it out. Say it again, for the record, she said. Somchai glared but repeated it, his voice flat, mechanical, like he was reciting a death sentence. When he finished, she clicked it off, the silence heavier than before. Thanks, she said, pocketing the device. I'll look into it. Better you than me, he muttered, turning back to the pen. Clean this up myself. Don't want her coming back. He grabbed a shovel, his movements brisk, as if motion could bury the fear. Sai lingered, snapping a few more photos, the pig's dead stare burning into her. She couldn't dismiss it now, not with this, not with Somchai's raw panic echoing Mei Yai's warnings. Vaikrasu wasn't just a story. It was here, hunting, leaving bodies in its wake. She slung her backpack over her shoulder and trudged back to the village, the sun climbing higher but offering no warmth. The fields stretched around her, innocent under the daylight, yet she felt watched, eyes she couldn't see, prickling the back of her neck. Back at the shack, she dumped her gear on the table and replayed Somchai's recording, his voice crackling through the tiny speaker. A woman's face, floating, glowing red. She stopped it, rubbing her temples. The hum he'd described tugging at a memory, the faint sound on her own tape from that first night, unnoticed until now. She rewound her recorder, played it back, and there it was, a low, guttural hum beneath the crickets, chilling her blood. It wasn't her imagination, it was real. She sat back, staring at the cracked window, the fields beyond it silent and still. The story wasn't just worth it anymore. It was dangerous, and she was in too deep to walk away. Chapter 5. The glow returns. The shack was a flimsy shield against the night, its tin roof creaking under a faint breeze that swept through Ban Nong Kok. Sai sat on the cot, her back against the wall, the recorder spinning Somchai's words on repeat through her earbuds. A woman's face, floating, glowing red. The pig's hollowed-out corpse flashed in her mind, bloodless, gutless, eyes wide with terror. She'd spent the day chasing leads, but the villagers clammed up, their stares heavy with suspicion. Mei Yai's tale of Vaikrasu and Somchai's account gnawed at her, cracking her skepticism like thin ice. The hum from her first night's recording, low, guttural, matched his description too closely to dismiss. She yanked the earbuds out, tossing the recorder onto the table, and rubbed her eyes. It was late, past 11, the village swallowed by darkness save for the sliver of moon outside. A sound cut through the quiet, wet, rhythmic, drip, 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 like rain, but too deliberate. Sai froze, her pulse quickening. It was the same noise from 2 nights ago, closer now, just beyond the shack's walls. She stood, grabbing her camera, and crept to the cracked window, her breath shallow. The rice paddies stretched into the night, shadows swaying under the faint moonlight. Then she saw it, the red glow, brighter this time, hovering low over the fields. It pulsed, erratic, drifting nearer, and her stomach twisted as she made out a shape. A head, severed, trailing something long and dark beneath it. "Shit," she whispered, fumbling with the camera. She snapped a photo, the flash briefly lighting the shack, but the glow didn't flinch. It grew closer, the dripping louder, and a stench hit her, rotten, wet, like spoiled meat left in the sun. Her hands shook as she zoomed in, the lens catching details. A woman's face, pale and gaunt, eyes burning red, mouth gaping with jagged teeth. Intestines dangled below, glistening, swaying like a grotesque tail. Sai stumbled back, the camera slipping from her grip, clattering to the floor. The air thickened, a whisper curling through the window. Her name, Sai, soft and guttural, like it came from a throat choked with blood. She spun, heart slamming against her ribs, and grabbed her machete from the backpack. Some Chai's story had convinced her to buy it that afternoon. The glow pressed against the glass now, the face staring in, eyes unblinking, lips curling into a leer. The dripping intensified, a wet slap against the ground outside, and the window rattled as something scratched at it. Slow, deliberate, claws on wood. "No way," Sai muttered, backing toward the door. She yanked it open and bolted outside, the night air cool against her sweat-slick skin. The glow followed, rising higher, the head turning to track her. She swung the machete, a wild arc that sliced nothing but air, and ran back inside, slamming the door shut. She shoved the table against it, the legs screeching across the floor, and wedged her body behind it, panting. The scratching grew louder, a nails-on chalkboard shriek, and the whisper came again. Sigh. Closer, inside the room now, though the door held. She clutched the machete, eyes darting to the window. The glow hovered there, the face pressed against the glass, smearing it with something dark and wet. Those red eyes locked onto hers, piercing, hungry, and the intestines lashed like whips, tapping the pain. Sai's breath hitched, her mind screaming to move, to fight, but her limbs froze. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the glow retreated, drifting back into the fields, the dripping fading with it. The whisper lingered a moment longer. Sigh. Before silence swallowed it, she stayed there, braced against the table, until her legs gave out. She slid to the floor, machete clattering beside her, and buried her face in her hands. The stench lingered, faint but cloying, and the glass bore a smudge she couldn't unsee. She'd wanted a story, proof to shove in her editor's face. But this wasn't a scoop. It was a nightmare. The recorder lay on the table, its red light off, but she knew it had caught nothing. This was hers alone to bear, a truth she couldn't outrun. Chapter 6. The Shrine's Secret. The midday sun beat down on Ban Nong Kok, its glare harsh against the shack's tin roof as Sai paced outside, her boots kicking up dust. Last night's encounter replayed in her mind, the glowing head, the whispered sigh, the stench that still clung to her clothes, despite a scrub with tepid water. Sleep had eluded her, leaving her wired and raw, the machete now a constant weight at her hip. She checked the recorder at dawn, nothing but static, no proof of the voice that haunted her. The smudge on the window, dark and tacky, was all that remained, a mark she couldn't explain away. Mei Yai's words, Vai Krasu, knock the shrine, echoed louder now, pulling her back to the old woman's house. She needed answers, not riddles. The village simmered in the heat as she approached, the dirt road baking underfoot. A few villagers lingered on porches, their stares sharp, but none spoke. Mei Yai's house loomed ahead, its sagging frame unchanged, the porch cluttered with dried herbs. Sai climbed the steps, the wood groaning, and banged on the door. Mei Yai, it's Sai, open up, now. A shuffle came from inside, slow and reluctant. The door creaked open, revealing Mei Yai's weathered face. Her eyes narrowed beneath a frown. You again, she rasped, her voice rough with irritation. Told you to leave it be, girl. Sai stepped forward, blocking the door before it could close. I saw it last night. Her, the head, the glow, everything you said. She knew my name. Her voice trembled, anger masking fear. What's in that shrine? Tell me, or I'll find out myself. Mei Yai's scowl faltered, a flicker of unease crossing her face. She glanced over her shoulder at the locked shrine in the corner, then back to Sai. Fool, she muttered, stepping aside. Come in then, but don't say I didn't warn you. The room was dim, the air heavy with incense and a sour undertone, rot, faint but persistent. Sai followed Mei Yai inside, her boots thudding on the floorboards. The shrine sat against the wall, a small wooden box chained shut, its surface stained and warped. Buddhist relics, prayer flags, a chipped Buddha flanked it, but the stench came from within, unmistakable now. Sai dropped her backpack, pulling out her recorder and clicking it on. Start talking, she said, her tone hard. What's this got to do with Nok? Mei Yai sank onto a mat, her gnarled hands clutching her prayer beads. She stared at the shrine, her voice low. Nok's what's left. 50 years ago, they killed her, beat her, burned her out, buried her shallow. Thought that had ended, but she cursed us, swore she'd take what was hers. Night after, she came back. Vai Krasu, hungry and vengeful. Been here ever since. Sai scribbled, her pulse quickening. And the shrine, Mei Yai hesitated, her beads clicking softly. Her things, cloth from her dress, a lock of hair. Village elders sealed them after she started hunting, to bind her spirit. Supposed to keep her weak, trapped. Worked for a while, till now. Her eyes flicked to Sai. You're waking her, girl. Your questions, your noise. Sai snorted, though it sounded forced. So I'm to blame. What's in there? Show me. Mei Yai's hand tightened on the beads, her jaw clenching. You don't touch it, she snapped. But she stood, hobbling to the shrine. Her fingers shook as she pulled a rusted key from her sarong, unlocking the chain with a faint clink. The doors creaked open, revealing a decayed wooden box inside, its lid cracked. She lifted it, the stench sharpening, mold and rot, thick enough to taste. Within lay a stained rag, once white, now brown with age, and a tangle of black hair, matted and dull. This is her, Mei Yai said, voice barely a whisper. All that's left. Sai leaned closer, her camera snapping a photo, the flash stark in the gloom. The hair seemed to shift, though no breeze stirred the room, or maybe it was her imagination. The recorder hummed, catching Mei Yai's words, and Sai fought a shiver. So this keeps her bound. Why is she stronger now? May I shut the box, the lid slamming harder than needed. Time wears it thin, and you're calling her out, digging where you shouldn't. She knows you're here, like she knew me once. Her eyes darkened, lost in memory. Heard my name too, years back, never forgot it. Sai straightened, pocketing the recorder. I'm not here to play ghost hunter, she said, her voice sharp. I need proof, not curses. But the box rattled faintly as she spoke, a soft tremor, like something inside stirred. Mei Yai flinched, her beads slipping to the floor, and Sai froze, her breath catching. The sound stopped, leaving only silence and the stench. Get out, Mei Yai hissed, shoving the chain back into place. You've seen enough. Sai grabbed her backpack and stepped outside, the heat a relief after the room's oppressive air. She glanced back as the door slammed, the shrine's corner just visible through the window. The rattle echoed in her head, a warning she couldn't shake. Knock wasn't just a story. She was awake, and Sai was tangled in her web. Chapter 7. The Hunger Awakens. The afternoon sun hung heavy over Ban Nong Kok, its heat pressing down like a lid on a simmering pot. Sai trudged back to her shack, her boots scuffing the dirt road, her mind churning with Mei Yai's words and the faint rattle of that shrine. The stained cloth, the lock of hair, relics of Nok, the Pai Krasui, felt less like superstition now, more like a noose tightening around the village. She'd spent the morning replaying her recordings, Somchai's gruff voice mingling with Mei Yai's raspy warnings, the hum from that first night threading through it all. The smudge on her window still stared back at her, a dark smear she couldn't scrub away. Her skepticism was crumbling, replaced by a gnawing dread she couldn't outpace. A shout broke her thoughts, sharp, panicked from the village center. She quickened her step, rounding a corner to find a small crowd gathered near a chicken coop, their voices a low buzz of fear. An old woman waved her arms, her sarong flapping, while a man clutched a broom like a weapon. Sai pushed through, her recorder already out. What's going on? She asked, her tone sharp. Gone, the old woman wailed, pointing at the coop. All of them, chickens, 5 hens, just gone. The wooden slats were intact, no blood or feathers scattered, but the coop was empty, a silent void where life had been. Sai frowned, snapping a photo, her pulse ticking up. When? She pressed. Last night, the man with the broom said, his voice tight. Heard a hum, low, strange, thought it was the wind. Woke up to this. He gestured helplessly, his eyes darting to the sky. Sai's stomach twisted. The hum, Somchai had mentioned it too, tied to that glowing head. She scribbled it down, her hand unsteady, when another cry rang out, this time from the edge of the village. She followed the sound, the crowd trailing her, to a yard where a woman knelt beside a dog's corpse. Its throat was torn, its belly hollowed out, no blood pooling, just like the pig. The woman sobbed, rocking back and forth, while villagers muttered prayers, their fear palpable. It's her, a voice whispered behind Sai, Mo Yai, standing at the crowd's edge, her beads clutched tight. She's waking up, hungry now, more than before. Her eyes locked on Sai, accusing. You stirred her. Sai bristled, but the words stuck. She turned away, heading for Somchai's farm, her boots pounding the dirt. If anyone knew more, it was him. He'd seen the thing up close. The stench of the pig pen hit her first, mud and manure thick in the air. But Somchai wasn't there. The pig snuffled nervously. The empty corner where the dead one had lain now swept clean. She called his name, her voice echoing, but only silence answered. Then she saw it, his machete, abandoned in the mud, its blade streaked with a black tar-like ooze. Her breath caught, her hand reaching for her own machete. She scanned the fields, the jungle looming dark and still, when a scream pierced the air, raw, guttural, from the trees. She ran toward it, her heart slamming against her ribs, the crowd's murmurs fading behind her. The jungle edge was dense, vines tangling her feet, but she pushed through, the scream cutting off as abruptly as it began. She stumbled into a clearing and froze. Somchai stood there, or what was left of him. He swayed, pale as ash, his shirt torn, his arm gashed deep with scratches, weeping that same black ooze. His eyes were wide, unseeing, fixed on the canopy above. She took me, he rasped, his voice a broken whisper, before collapsing into the dirt, trembling. Sai dropped beside him, her hands hovering, afraid to touch. Somchai, what happened? She demanded, her recorder thrust out, shaking in her grip. Who took you? He coughed, black spittle flecking his lips. Her face, glowing, came last night, after the pig. Dragged me here, whispered my name, clawed me. He clutched his arm, the ooze spreading, his skin feverish under her touch. She's stronger now, once more. Sai's throat tightened, the recorder catching his ragged breaths. She helped him up, his weight heavy against her, and half-dragged him back to the village, his mutters fading into delirium. The crowd parted as she emerged, their faces pale, Mei Yai's stare cutting through her. Told you, the old woman hissed, turning away. Back at the shack, Sai sat Somchai against the wall, his head lolling, the black ooze staining her hands. She washed it off, the water turning dark, and grabbed her camera, flipping through the day's photos. The coop, the dog, and then the pig from yesterday. She paused, zooming in on the background. A shadowy face, faint but there, hovering in the field, unseen when she'd taken the shot. Her breath hitched, the pieces locking into place. Nock was awake, and she was hunting. Chapter 8. The Curse Unveiled. The dusk sky bruised purple over Ban Nong Kok, shadows stretching long across the dirt road as Sai trudged toward the temple. Somchai's collapse replayed in her mind, his fevered whispers, the black ooze seeping from his scratches, the photo's shadowy face staring back at her. The village was unraveling, its quiet shattered by missing animals and whispered fears of Phai Krasu. Mei Yai's accusations stung. You stirred her, and the shrine's rattle haunted her, a warning she couldn't ignore. She needed more than tales now. She needed a way to stop it. The temple, crumbling on the village's edge, was her last hope. Its wooden frame sagged, paint peeling from warped beams, the roof tiles cracked and mossy. A faded Buddha statue sat at the entrance, its serene face chipped, one hand missing. Sai climbed the steps, her boots heavy with mud, and pushed through the creaky doors. Inside, the air was cool and stale, thick with the scent of old incense and damp wood. Candlelight flickered from a low altar, casting jittery shadows across the walls, where faded murals of demons and monks peeled away in flakes. A figure knelt there, robed in saffron, his back to her. Phra Thong, the village monk, 60 and wiry, his hands scarred from some past penance. Sawasdee Ka, Sai said, her voice echoing faintly. I'm Sai. I need help. About the thing out there. The head. Frathong rose slowly, turning to face her. His face was gaunt, eyes deep-set and weary, his hands clasped before him. The scars on his knuckles gleamed in the candlelight, white and jagged. I know why you're here, he said, his voice low, steady, carrying the weight of years. Vi Kresu. Nok. She's awake again, isn't she? Sai nodded, dropping her backpack and pulling out her recorder. She clicked it on, the red light blinking. You know her story. Mei Yai said she was cursed, killed 50 years ago. I've seen her, heard her. She's taking animals, hurting people. Why now? The monk gestured to a mat, and Sai sat, her machete clinking against the floor. He settled across from her, his gaze fixed on the altar's flame. Nok was no witch, he began, his tone measured. She was young, poor, a healer, some said. A child died in her care, fever, nothing she could stop. But the village needed a scapegoat. They accused her of dark magic, turned on her. I was a boy then, saw it happen. He paused, his scarred hands flexing. They beat her, burned her house, left her bleeding in the fields. She begged for mercy, but they gave none. Sai scribbled, her pen scratching fast. And the curse, Frathong's eyes darkened. Before she died, a shaman came, old, half-mad. He hated the village, saw their cruelty. He worked a ritual over her body, chanting, cutting his own flesh to bind her spirit to vengeance. Said she'd rise as Vi Kresu, take what they took from her, life, blood, peace. Night after they buried her, she came, been here ever since, feeding on their descendants. Sai's breath hitched, the recorder humming between them. So it's revenge. Why is she stronger now? You, he said simply, his gaze piercing. Your presence, your questions, they're a spark to dry grass. She senses you, an outsider digging into her pain. In the shrine, Mei Yai's relic, it's failing. Time wears it thin, and anger feeds her. He leaned closer, the candlelight glinting off his scars. She'll take more than animals soon. She'll take you if you stay. Sai bristled, though a chill snaked down her spine. I'm not here to die, she snapped, pocketing the recorder. Can't you stop her, exorcise her or something? Frathong shook his head, a faint tremor in his hands. Tried once, years back. Sealed her relics, chanted the rites. It weakened her, but the curse is deep. Shaman's work, beyond me now. She's tied to this place, to their guilt. Only way is to trap her again, but it's risky. Needs blood, chance, and a will stronger than hers. Sai stood, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. Then tell me how. I'll do it. I'm not running. Her voice was firm, but her hand brushed the machete, a nervous tick. He studied her, then nodded slowly. Tomorrow, bring the relics from Mei Yai. We'll try. As she turned to leave, a wail echoed outside, distant, unearthly, rising from the fields. The candles flickered, wax dripping faster, and Frathong's face paled. She's close, he whispered, clutching his beads. Go, now. Sai stepped into the dusk, the wail fading into the wind. The temple doors thudded shut behind her, the village silent under the growing dark. She knew it now. Nok's curse wasn't just a story. It was a wound, festering, and she'd torn it open. The fight was coming, whether she wanted it or not. Chapter 9. The Night Siege. The moon hung thin and sharp over Ban Nong Kok, a sliver of light barely piercing the thick darkness that cloaked the village. Sai sat inside her shack, the machete gripped tight in her hands, its blade glinting faintly in the glow of a single lantern. Frathong's words echoed in her head. She'll take you if you stay, and the wail from dusk lingered like a splinter under her skin. She'd spent the day preparing, her recorder and camera shoved into her backpack, her nerves frayed from Somchai's collapse and the village's mounting fear. The air was heavy, the cricket's hum fractured by an unnatural stillness, and she knew it was coming. The glow, the dripping, the whisper of her name. They weren't warnings anymore. They were a promise. It started with the stench, rotten, wet, curling through the cracked window like a living thing. Sai's stomach churned, her grip tightening on the machete as the familiar drip, drip, drip sounded outside, closer than ever. She stood, heart pounding, and peered out. The red glow hovered over the rice paddies, brighter, fiercer, rushing toward the shack like a comet. Before she could react, the window shattered inward, glass spraying across the floor, and the Phi Crisue was there. Nock's head, grotesque and real, eyes blazing red, mouth gaping with jagged teeth. Intestines lashed behind it, slick and writhing, slamming against the walls with wet thuds. Sai screamed, swinging the machete in a wild arc. The blade sliced through air, the head darting back with a hiss, its guts whipping toward her like tentacles. One struck her arm, cold and slimy, knocking her against the table. The lantern crashed, plunging the room into shadows lit only by Nock's glow. Sai, the voice rasped, guttural and wet, filling the shack as the head lunged again, teeth snapping inches from her face. She rolled, scrambling to her feet, and swung the machete harder, desperation fueling her. The blade caught something, a piece of intestine severed, falling to the floor with a sickening plop. It writhed there, black ooze leaking, then dissolved into smoke, the stench choking her. Nock shrieked, a sound that clawed at Sai's ears, and the head smashed into the wall, splintering wood. Sai bolted for the door, yanking it open, but the glow was faster, blocking her path, the face leering, pale, rotting, eyes boring into hers. "Get away," Sai yelled, slashing again. The machete grazed the head, tearing a gash across its cheek, and black blood sprayed, sizzling as it hit the ground. Nock recoiled, her shriek rising, intestines thrashing like whips. Sai ducked, one grazing her shoulder, leaving a burn of cold pain. She stumbled outside, the night air sharp against her sweat, and ran toward the temple, Fra Thong's promise of a ritual, her only hope. The glow pursued, weaving through the air, the dripping a relentless drumbeat behind her. Villagers' doors stayed shut, their fear locking them in, and the field stretched empty under the moon. Sai's legs burned, her breath ragged, but the temple loomed ahead, its sagging silhouette a beacon. She crashed through the doors, slamming them shut, and collapsed against them, panting, the machete clattering beside her. The scratching came instantly, slow, deliberate, claws raking the wood. Sai, the whisper seeped through, closer, colder, threading into her bones. She pressed her weight against the door, the glow pulsing through the cracks, red light painting her face. The altar's candles flickered wildly, wax dripping in frantic streams, and she scanned the room, empty, Fra Thong gone, only shadows and relics staring back. The scratching stopped, the glow fading, but the whisper lingered. Sigh, a final taunt before silence fell. She slid to the floor, trembling, the severed guts ooze still staining her hands. Nock was stronger, angrier, and she'd marked her. The temple was no sanctuary, not yet. She clutched the machete, her resolve hardening. Tomorrow, with Fra Thong, she'd fight back or die trying. Chapter 10. The Monk's Plan. The pre-dawn air hung heavy over the temple, a gray mist curling around its sagging frame as Sai slumped against the wall, the machete still clutched in her hands. Her shoulder ached from Nock's icy lash, her arm bruised where the gut had struck, and the black ooze from last night stained her sleeve, its stench a faint echo of the attack. The Farkrasui's shriek still rang in her ears, her name whispered in that guttural rasp. Sai, a sound that had chased her into fitful dozes through the night. The temple's wooden doors bore fresh scratches, deep and jagged, but the glow hadn't returned. Not yet. She rubbed her eyes, exhaustion weighing her down when footsteps creaked across the floorboards. Fra Thong emerged from the shadows, his saffron robe muted in the dim light, a bundle of cloth in his scarred hands. His face was drawn, his deep-set eyes shadowed with a sleepless night's burden. "You're alive," he said, his voice low and steady, though a flicker of relief crossed his gaunt features. "Good. We've little time." Sai straightened, wincing as her shoulder protested. "She came for me," she said, her tone rough. "Broke the window, nearly got me. I cut her, took a piece of her guts. It dissolved, but she didn't stop." She held up the machete, its blade streaked with dark residue, proof of the fight. The monk nodded, setting the bundle on the altar. "She's stronger now. Your blood woke her fully. We must trap her tonight before she takes more." He unrolled the cloth, revealing a spool of red thread, a small clay jar, and a dagger with a carved handle, tools for a ritual Sai barely understood but couldn't deny. She dropped her backpack beside the mat and sat, pulling out her recorder. "How?" she asked, clicking it on, the red light blinking. "You said blood and chance. Tell me what to do." Fra Thong knelt across from her, his scarred hands steady as he traced the thread. "The relics, Meiai's box, hold her essence. We lure her with blood, bind her with sacred words, seal her back into it. The thread ties her spirit, the jar catches her power, the dagger cuts the curse's root if it fails." He met her gaze, his voice firm. "It worked once, 50 years ago, after she rose. I helped then, a young novice, but the shaman's magic is deep. It'll fight us." Sai scribbled, her pen scratching fast. "Blood? Whose? And where?" "Pig's blood," he said, "fresh, strong. We spill it in the fields, where she hunts. I'll chant the rites, old Pali, from the texts. You'll hold the relics, keep her focused. She'll come for you. She knows you now." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "You're the bait, Sai. Can you do it?" Her stomach twisted, but she nodded, gripping the machete tighter. "I've faced her twice. Third time's the charm, right?" Her laugh was brittle, masking the fear clawing her chest. "What about Somchai? He's hurt. Could help us." Fra Thong's face darkened. "He was here yesterday, feverish, muttering about her. Left at dusk, said she called him. I tried to stop him, but he ran to the jungle. Haven't seen him since." Sai's breath caught, the recorder humming between them. "Called him, like she called me." Somchai's black oozed scratches flashed in her mind, his delirious whispers. "She took me. We need to find him." "No time," the monk said, shaking his head. "Dawn's breaking. Get the relics from Mei. Meet me at the field's edge by nightfall. We end this, or she ends us." He stood, gathering the ritual tools, his movements brisk despite his age. Sai pocketed the recorder and slung her backpack over her good shoulder, the machete sheathed at her hip. She stepped outside, the mist cold against her skin, the village stirring faintly under the gray sky. Mei Yai's house was a short walk, but each step felt heavier, the jungle's edge looming where Somchai had vanished. She banged on the old woman's door, her voice sharp. "Mei Yai, it's Sai. I need the shrine, now." The door creaked open, Mei Yai's scowl greeting her. "Fool girl," she rasped, clutching her beads. "You'll kill us all." But she shuffled inside, unlocking the shrine with trembling hands, the stench of rot wafting out as she handed over the decayed box. "Take it and go. She's your problem now." Sai grabbed it, the wood rough and warm against her palms, and headed back. The relics a weight she couldn't ignore. The plan was set. Blood, chance, bait. But Somchai's absence gnawed at her, a loose thread in a tightening knot. By nightfall, she'd face Nock again, and this time, there'd be no running. Chapter 11. The final hunt night cloaked the rice fields of Ban Nong Kok in a suffocating dark, the thin moon casting faint silver threads over the swaying stalks. Sai stood at the field's edge, the decayed box from Mei Yai's shrine clutched in her hands, its warmth pulsing against her palms like a heartbeat. Phra Thong knelt beside her, his saffron robe stained with mud, the red thread unspooled around a clay jar at his feet. A bucket of pig's blood sat nearby, its coppery tang sharp in the still air, spilled in a crude circle to lure Nock. The dagger rested on the ground, its carved handle glinting, a last resort Sai hoped they wouldn't need. Her machete hung at her hip, its blade still marked from last night's fight, and her shoulder throbbed, a reminder of the Phai Krasu's cold lash. Phra Thong chanted, his voice a low drone of ancient Pali, the words weaving through the night like a net. "Stay steady," he told her earlier, his scarred hands firm as he tied the thread around the jar. "She'll come for you. Hold the relics. Keep her here." Sai nodded now, her jaw tight, the box trembling faintly in her grip. The air grew heavy, the cricket's hum fading, replaced by a distant drip, drip, drip that sent her pulse racing. The glow appeared first, red, fierce, rising from the jungle's edge like a wound tearing open. It streaked toward them, faster than before, and Sai's breath caught as Nock materialized, the head pale and rotting, eyes blazing, intestines trailing in a writhing mass. The stench hit, rot and blood, choking, and the dripping intensified, wet slaps against the earth. Phra Thong's chant faltered, then surged louder, his beads rattling in his hands. "She's here," Sai whispered, stepping back, the relics held high. The glow locked onto her, Nock's face twisting into a leer, teeth bared. "Sai," the voice rasped, cutting through the monk's words, and the head lunged, guts lashing like whips. Sai ducked, one grazing her arm, icy and searing, but she held firm, the box shaking violently now. Phra Thong flung the thread, its red strands arcing through the air, tangling around Nock's intestines. She shrieked, a sound that shattered the night, and thrashed against the binding, the jar trembling as her power pulsed. "Keep her close," he shouted, his voice straining, resuming the chant. Sai planted her feet, the blood circle glistening beneath her, and thrust the box forward, its lid creaking open, the stained cloth and hair spilling out. Nock's eyes flared, her shriek turning guttural, and she dove, jaws snapping. Sai swung the machete, slicing a gut that sprayed black ooze, sizzling in the mud. The head recoiled, but the thread tightened, pulling her toward the jar. Then a shape stumbled from the jungle, Somchai, or what was left of him. His body was torn, throat ripped, entrails missing. Yet he moved, lurching forward, eyes blank. His body was torn, throat ripped, entrails missing. Yet he moved, lurching forward, eyes blank. She took me, he croaked, collapsing near the circle, his bloodless corpse a grotesque mirror of the pig. Sai gagged, her grip faltering, but Frathong's chant peaked, the Pali words thundering. Nox spun toward Somchai's body, her guts lashing out, wrapping around his remains. She tore into him, teeth sinking into his chest, a wet crunch echoing as she fed, the glow pulsing brighter. Now, the monk yelled, thrusting the jar forward. The thread snapped taut, dragging Nock back, her shriek rising to a wail as the jar glowed, sucking at her essence. Sai lunged, slamming the box's lid shut, the relics trembling inside. Nock's head jerked, intestines flailing, one striking Frathong's leg, knocking him down. His chant broke into a gasp, but he crawled forward, shoving the jar closer. The glow dimmed, Nock's form shrinking, her eyes locked on Sai with a hatred that burned. Sai, she hissed, a final curse before the jar flared, pulling her in. A scream cut short as the lid slammed shut. Silence fell, heavy and sudden, the dripping gone. Sai dropped to her knees, panting, the box still in her hands, its warmth fading. Frathong clutched his leg, beads scattered in the mud, his breath ragged. Somchai's body lay still, a hollow shell, the ritual's cost carved into his flesh. Did it work? Sai rasped, her voice trembling. The monk nodded, weak but sure. She's bound, for now. Take the jar, the relics, seal them away. His eyes met hers, grim. But she'll fight, always will. Sai stared at the jar, its clay surface etched with faint cracks, and knew he was right. The hunt was over, but the hunger wasn't gone. Chapter 12. The Unseen Price. Dawn broke over Ban Nong Kok, a weak gray light seeping through the temple's cracked walls, casting long shadows across the blood-streaked floor. Sai knelt beside the altar, her hands trembling as she clutched the decayed box, its lid sealed tight around Nock's relics. The stained cloth and lock of hair now still, their warmth gone cold. The clay jar sat nearby, its surface etched with faint cracks, the red thread tangled around it like a web. The air was heavy, the stench of rot and pig's blood fading into a dull ache in her lungs. Her machete lay beside her, its blade crusted with black ooze, a silent testament to the night's fight. The ritual had worked. Nock's glow was gone, her shrieks silenced, but the cost sprawled before her. Frathong lay slumped against the wall, his saffron robe torn, his chest clawed open by Nock's final lash. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and thick, his scarred hands limp around his beads. He'd pushed the jar into place, his chant unbroken even as she'd struck, giving his life to bind her. Sai's throat tightened, her eyes stinging as she stared at him. "You didn't have to," she whispered, but the words dissolved into the quiet. She dragged him inside after the jar flared, hoping he'd hold on, but his breath had rattled out moments ago, leaving her alone with the silence. The rice fields outside stretched calm under the rising sun, their stillness mocking the chaos of hours before. Somchai's torn body lay in the mud, a hollow shell the villagers would find soon, their fear reignited. Sai stood, wincing as her bruised shoulder protested, and gathered the jar and box, their weight a burden she couldn't shed. Frathong's last words echoed, "Seal them away," and she knew where. Mei Yai's shrine, the only place left to lock Nock's curse. She sheathed the machete, slung her backpack over her good arm, and stepped into the dawn, the temple's doors thudding shut behind her. The village was waking, murmurs rising as she passed, but no one met her gaze. Mei Yai's house loomed ahead, its porch empty. Sai banged on the door, her voice hoarse. "Mei Yai, it's done. Take these." The old woman emerged, her scowl deeper, her beads clutched tight. She stared at the box and jar, then at Sai, her eyes narrowing. "You killed her," Mei Yai rasped, stepping back. "Bound her," Sai corrected, shoving the relics into her hands. "Fra Thong's dead, Somchai too. It's over, for now." The jar trembled faintly as Mei Yai took it, a shiver Sai couldn't unsee. The old woman muttered a prayer, hobbling inside to lock them back in the shrine, the chain clinking shut. Sai didn't wait for thanks, none would come, and trudged to her shack, the village's weight lifting with each step. She packed fast, recorder, camera, notes, leaving the machete behind, its blade too stained to carry. The motorcycle roared to life, and she rode out, dust trailing her as Ban Nong Kok shrank in the rear view. Bangkok's skyline loomed hours later, a concrete sanctuary, but the relief was hollow. She crashed into her apartment, dropping her gear on the table, and sank onto the couch, exhaustion pulling her under. The recorder woke her hours later, its playback buzzing from a bumped button. She grabbed it, bleary-eyed, expecting Somchai's voice or Fra Thong's chants. Instead, Nock's whisper filled the room, Sai, over and over, a loop from a night she couldn't place. Her heart stopped, her gaze snapping to the backpack. The box and jar were with Mei Yai, sealed, yet the voice was here, inescapable. She shut it off, hands shaking, but the silence buzzed with her name. A faint tremor shook the table, the box, her box of gear, not the relics. She tore it open, finding nothing but her camera. Its screen cracked. The apartment stilled, but the whisper lingered in her mind, a price she hadn't seen coming. Nock was bound, but not gone, and Sai knew sleep would never come easy again.